Today, in honor of the spooky season, I thought I would share 3 creepy stories. All of these are 100% true, and all of these are things I personally experienced. The first incident took place in 2012, and the year is important to the story. It was toward the end of the summer, probably late August, around the time when you really notice that the days are getting shorter and the night is falling earlier. I was living in my parents' house, and for this story you have to understand how the house was set up. Basically, their house is shaped like a shoebox. It's small, 1 story high, and perfectly rectangular. In the middle of one side of the house is the main bathroom. On one side of the bathroom is the parents' bedroom, and on the other side is the kitchen and dining room. On the outer wall of the bathroom is the shower and the tub, and there's a small high window of frosted glass. So back to the story. I'm a night owl, and on this particular night in late August, I was heading for the bathroom. I get to the bathroom door, and the shower curtain is open. I'm about to turn on the light when I notice something outside of the bathroom window. It's not clear what I see because the frosted glass diffuses images so much, but based on what I could see, the best way I can describe it is that it was something white and oval-shaped and perhaps the size of a football. It wasn't intensely bright the way that a beam of light looks, so it couldn't have been a light from a car's headlights. It also wasn't as round as most light beams are. It was definitely an oblong oval shape. As you might guess, my first fear was that I was seeing a human face, that there was someone standing outside the bathroom window looking toward it. But it was pure white, way too pale for even most naturally pale people. There wasn't any hint of peachiness. Also, it was perfectly still. If it was a real person, I would expect at least a little bit of movement, because it's very hard to stand perfectly still without trembling or twitching at least a little. And lastly, there were no hints of any facial features. Now, granted, the window might diffuse any features so they got blurred out, but there was no hint of any eyes or mouth or hair. It was just blank and white and perfectly still. This convinced me that it wasn't actually a person's face, so I felt safe enough to use the bathroom, but I didn't turn on the bathroom light so as not to get attention. I pulled the shower curtain closed, used the toilet, and when I was done, I decided I would still try to get a peek at whatever it was I was seeing. But in order to look outside, I would have to use a window that wasn't the frosted bathroom window. On one side, as I said, of the bathroom is my parents' room, but I couldn't go in there because my dad had to get up early for work, and I wasn't going to disturb my parents over what was probably nothing. So my only options were the kitchen or the dining room windows. I snuck out to the kitchen, but I didn't see anything outside of the bathroom window. Now, granted, from the angle I was at, there was sort of a blind spot in front of the bathroom window, creating an area where I couldn't see. If I did want to see into that blind spot, I would have to actually go outside, which I didn't want to do because I don't really want to go investigating strange things outside at midnight. And also my parents have an alarm system. And anytime you activate or deactivate the alarm, it beeps super, super loud. And in that small house, my parents would definitely hear it. It would wake them up, and I wanted to avoid that and avoid disturbing them when it wasn't needed. So I didn't go outside that night, but the next day, when it was bright, I did go out and look. And I didn't see anything that could have caused the oval shape. All that's outside in that garden is basically a fence and a bunch of plants. The next night, I don't see the white oval outside the bathroom window. And the same goes for the next couple of nights. But then, I see it again. And everything happens exactly the same as before. It's the middle of the night, I go to the bathroom, I see this still, ghostly pale oval-shaped thing outside the window. At this point, I'll make a note about the height. This house is on a foundation, so it's elevated about a foot off the ground. The windowsill of the bathroom window is about at my eye level, so I can just barely look over it. And this oval that I am seeing outside is higher than me. I'm a little over 5 feet tall, and it's at least 6 inches higher than I am inside the house. It means that if what I'm seeing is a face of a person, that person would have to be well over 6 feet tall. I continue to see this strange white oval on and off, on average of maybe once a week, over the next several months. It's always in the dead of night, it's never in the early evening, even as the night comes earlier and earlier. And because I don't want to wake anyone up to come and see this strange shape, I'm the only one who ever sees it. So in 2012, when this story takes place, a particular game was released. It was a game called Slender. The game features Slenderman, a mysterious and terrifying creature, and the game is what made this monstrous character really go mainstream. I didn't learn of Slenderman or the game until fall of 2012, which is when the YouTubers I was watching started playing it. And I watched a couple of these playthrough videos, and I enjoyed laughing when the YouTubers got jump scared, and I had a good time watching these videos. But at the time, I wasn't thinking of the strange thing outside the bathroom window. It wasn't until a few nights later, when I saw it again in the middle of the night, and after using the bathroom, I was heading back to my room, and there was a moment when I stopped. It's when I remembered this Slenderman character from this game I was watching. I remember that Slenderman is a supernatural being who is said to be very tall and has a completely blank white head. I know it would be silly to say that Slenderman was stalking my bathroom window, but the fact that I start seeing this inexplicable thing outside of my window, and then not long after I hear of a creature that in many ways fits the profile for what I'm seeing. I continued to see the shape outside the window for several months. I tried taking a picture of it, but at that time, I didn't have a camera that was good with night photos and time lapses and such, so the photos never came out clear enough to see anything. I continued to see it until the dead of winter, and then suddenly, it stopped appearing entirely. To this day, I still have no idea what the white oval shape was or what it came from. This second story took place very recently, actually, in late August of this year. I was near a large university library that I had been meaning to visit for a while to do some research. I took the opportunity to go and visit. Unfortunately, I only had a very narrow window of time before I had to head home, so I would have to work quickly. This library is pretty vast. It's technically 2 buildings that have been spliced together. There's tons of shelves, and it's easy to get lost or disoriented. On top of that, the fall school term hadn't started yet, so the library was basically empty. There were very few students, and only a rare librarian. On the first floor of the library were several guest computers. Since I wasn't a student and didn't have student login credentials, I had to use the guest computers to make a search for the books I needed. So I go up to one of these computers, do a search of the library's catalog, find the numbers for books that looked suitable, and then I go up to the second floor of the library to find these books. It takes a while since there's so many shelves, but I finally find them, browse through several, and luckily am able to locate the information that I need. But there's one more piece of information that I still haven't found, which means I need to make another book search. I could go down the main stairwell to the first floor and use the guest computer I used before, but on the second floor, which I'm on, there's exactly one guest computer, and it's not far from the stairwell, so I use that one instead. Now, remember that there is basically nobody up here on the floor I'm on. The library is borderline empty. Anyway, I go to this computer, search the library catalog, and finally find one book that looks like it can help me. So I write down the number so I can look it up. Whenever I do a library catalog search, I like to reset the page. That way the next person who's doing a search has a nice, clean, fresh page to start with, and they don't have to see all the clutter left behind from my search. So I always either click the catalog's home page, or if I don't see an easy way to do that, I click the back button until I get back to the home page that I was on. And that's what I did this time. I clicked the back button until I got to the catalog's main search page. At this point, I really do not have much time. There's a very narrow window of time before my bus comes, and I really want to get it, so I'm in a rush. I hurry over to the far end of the floor of the library, in the far corner, where the book should be located. I luckily find it, look through it very quickly, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem to have the information that I need. So I put it back on the shelf, and I rush back to the main staircase so that I can get down to the first floor, get out of the library, and catch my bus. As I'm heading for the stairs, I get into a main corridor area between the shelves, and I pass by this huge guy who's walking in my direction. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to him. I just sort of absently think about what a coincidence it is that I'm actually passing someone in this big empty library where there's basically nobody. Anyway, I continue to hurry on. To get to the main stairs, I have to pass by the guest computer that I had just used to make my last search. And out of the corner of my eye, I notice that the page shown on the computer is not the catalog homepage I left it on. I turn my head to look, and then I stop right in my tracks, because the page the computer is showing is the page for the last book I looked up. This means that sometime in the space it took for me to rush to the far corner of the library, browse through the book, and then rush back here, which had to have been less than 5 minutes, someone came up to this computer in those 5 minutes, and instead of making a new search, they clicked the forward button, and then they left the computer. Why would someone do that? It could have been someone who was bored and nosy, but what were the chances that someone who was just bored would be here at this time of the year when basically nobody is going to go to the trouble of visiting the library? And what are the chances of that person then happening across the computer in the brief space of time I left it alone? It seemed very unlikely. But there was another possibility, and that was that someone had noticed that I was doing a search. Someone was looking at me from a distance that I didn't know about. And when I left the computer, they wanted to know what I was searching for. If you were in a big empty library and you wanted to corner someone in an isolated area, a good way to do that would be to find out the number of the book they're looking up. Because if you know the number of the book they're searching for, then you know where that person is going and where to find them. Perhaps that guy I passed on my way out was planning to do that exact thing. But because I left so quickly, they didn't have a chance to corner me in that far, lonely corner of the library. But at the end of the day, I can't say for sure. I don't know why someone went to the trouble of snooping on my search history in that very brief space of time, but it creeped me out, and I rushed out of the library extra fast. From now on, whenever I'm using a public computer to do a catalog search, I'll try to do it in a private window, and close the window when I'm done. That way a snoopy or ill-intentioned person can't find out what corner of the library I'm going to be in. This third story is another recent incident. I'm putting this one last, not because I think it's the creepiest, but because it's most likely to make viewers want to click off the video. Where I live, we fortunately don't have any toxic spiders. Sometimes in the winter, people will attribute mysterious red welts to spider bites, but we don't have anything poisonous like brown recluses or black widows. We also don't have gigantic spiders like tarantulas, but we do have slender-legged house spiders, which can get as big as a toddler's hand. One morning, I shower and shampoo my hair. After I get out, the bathroom mirrors are steamy, of course. I towel off my hair, then my body, but then I realize that I didn't dry off my face. I don't want to use the damp towel I just used to dry off my body, so instead I reach for a fresh towel. Or rather, a towel that was hanging on a rack, but it was one I knew was fairly clean. I'm standing in front of the steamy mirror, over the sink. I close my eyes and start patting my face dry with the towel. And almost immediately, I feel a tickling sensation on the bridge of my nose. This becomes what feels like a set of fingers slowly tapping in a ring over my face, moving in a slight direction toward my forehead. But the ends of these fingers are narrow points, like sharp-tipped fingernails. At first I wonder if a lock of my wet hair has fallen over my forehead, I open my eyes and see my foggy reflection. Instead of seeing a long, dark strand of hair over my face, I see something very different. I see a large, fuzzy, dark spot moving at an upward angle across my forehead. As someone with mild arachnophobia, my immediate guess was spider, and I madly swatted my face, hoping to brush it off. I spent about 2 minutes blindly brushing and swatting at myself in hopes of shaking it off, not paying attention to whether my efforts were productive. Once I calmed down, I tried to find the spider, where it had gone. Based on what I saw in the mirror, I guessed it was about the size of a quarter. But when I finally found it sitting in the sink, it was actually about twice that size across. Now, before I use a towel that's hanging up, I always grab it by the corner and give it a shake, just in case there's a spider hiding within the folds.